What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, and the QQQ. I want to break down what's happening to the overall market, what Jerome Powell just said for today, and some very important levels to watch for as NIO continues going into tomorrow alongside these other tickers. But before breaking things down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. Now, the offer ends in just 12 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. So, NIO is down 2.78% for the day, dropping with the market. We actually saw a little pump as we started off. This was very similar to SPY in the QQQ. We're getting another sell-off as time went on, as NIO is continuing to downtrend and it's still looking weak on the 4-hour time frame. So with NIO looking weak like this, the question is, how will NIO move in the future? I will talk more about this in a couple of minutes, but I first want to talk about how the market is looking, some other different factors. So what happened for today? Basically, we had Jerome Powell giving his speech. I gave you guys a warning about this yesterday, and when Powell gave his speech, the market made some crazy moves. First off, the market pumped, then it dumped, then it pumped again, and then it started to dump really hard as time went on. And then we ended up closing with a nice dump. So, pretty crazy stuff, crazy volatility, and Jerome Powell was behind this. I'm going to talk about what he said in just a minute, but I just want to remind you that for tomorrow, we don't really have anything coming out. It's just some oil data and a couple of Fed speakers, but that's pretty much it for tomorrow. There's not much else coming out in terms of data. There's the news that's still making headlines about NIO considering tapping dealers to boost EV sales in Europe. They're getting some criticism for this, so we will see how this affects them. But for the time being, I would prefer if NIO could kind of like promote their own products. They could try to do this on their own. But if they end up doing this, I'm not going to consider this the end of the world for the company. If anything, NIO has been dropping not because of news like this or what they're doing from a technical standpoint, but it has more to do with the overall market, the current cycle, as the whole market is starting to sink, and this is going to affect NIO to a large extent. So I don't think that it's solely the news. The news is affecting it to some extent, but it also has to do with other factors. Now, another big factor affecting NIO is Tesla. This ended up affecting many stocks on the consumer discretionary side. Tesla was down very hard. It got a very big drop over the fact that it missed on earnings, missed on EPS and revenue. There may be a pause for the Mexico Gigafactory, and then we also saw other factors like that. Elon Musk did say a lot of bearish things about Tesla. He said that the Cybertruck is not going to be profitable for the company, at least for the first 18 or so months. He also mentioned other things. He also mentioned that Tesla had hardships coming. We're entering a recessionary environment, and he talked and compared the current environment with that of 2009. So yeah, I mean, hard times could come. Things could get very difficult, but the bottom line is to not lose faith, not lose hope, and just know that even though this is affecting NIO and the markets, Tesla will come back. So will NIO and etc. So what about Jerome Powell? What did Powell say today? He basically flip-flopped a lot. It was pretty wild. So first he said things which were kind of soft for the Fed's policies. He said that there was progress being made for inflation coming down. He mentioned that the Fed has more work to be done, of course, but there was some progress. But then during the Q&A session, the guy started to flip-flop again. And he ended up saying things like inflation is too hot. The Fed may have to remain restrictive for longer. They'll consider that. And they could pause very soon, but even if they do either pause or skip, there's no guarantee it's going to last, and there's actually no guarantee it could happen. No guarantee it will happen, excuse me, because Powell said that they're going to be looking at economic data before making that decision. So he did say a lot of the same things, but he also mentioned that if we keep getting hot economic data, the Fed is going to be incentivized to raise rates again. And this is especially important after we got a relatively weak initial jobless claims report, which tells us that there's still strength in the job sector, which is incentivizing the Fed to be more hawkish, to raise rates again. Now, for earnings that are coming out, we have Friday, which is tomorrow. We have a couple of them. We have American Express and just a couple of others, but nothing like too insane. So we'll see what happens with this for Friday. As far as NIO goes, we have 39 million being the volume, which is just a little bit below average. We are down 2.78%. However, on top of all of this, the price price ratio is going up a little bit relative to short volume. This is basically telling us that there's a little bit more shorting going on NIO. Deutsche Bank is giving NIO a buy rating nonetheless. The price price ratio is dropping a bit as NIO is losing some relative strength. And finally, Fridays tend to be green about 53% of the time, so they're still kind of flat. We tend to see more volatility during the third or around like 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, which is like the third hour of the trading day, and also during the second to last hour, which is going to be around, I would say, about 4 o'clock p.m. as well. So you're going to be watching those periods very, very carefully. Please note that October tends to be a weak month for NIO, but November and December tend to be stronger historically. And that's pretty much it when it comes to data. The market is cooling off a bit, but it is set for some better moves in the future. Now let's break down NIO. So NIO is down 2.78%, cooling off a bit, looking a bit more bearish on the 4-hour time frame. And on the daily, it's looking more bearish. We're about to get a bearish cross on the PPO. So it looks like there's more downside coming for NIO. NIO looks like it's going to test these two supports. 7.3 is going to be a support to watch for, followed by $7 according to the daily chart. So I do believe NIO has downside coming. I think it's going to continue to downtrend for a little bit longer before we end up seeing a bottom forming and NIO gets a very, very nice bounce. So this large head and shoulders like pattern is going to play out most likely, and we're going to see NIO approach $7 before any kind of bounce comes. Part of why I'm saying that is because of SPY. The daily looks very bearish, and on top of that, we have the 200 EMA at 423. I believe we're going to be testing this very soon, so maybe we kind of pop and then drop, or we just drop from here. I think 423 will be tested and SPY is going to cool off a bit, and we're going to likely see more downside for it, which is going to cool off the markets. Tesla is definitely not done selling off, in my opinion. It may make an attempt to rebound, but I think it's going to eventually fill this gap down here. So we have this unfilled gap all the way down towards this. Let me just double check 215 area, and we have 212 as support. It looks to me like Tesla's going to be testing this 212 area like super, super soon. And then once we test that 212 area, we're going to likely see more downside as we approach it and an attempt to bounce right there. So I think there's more downside for Tesla. I think it's going to like pop a little bit in the morning, retest, the next level 225, then reject and come right back down towards 212 very, very soon. And that's going to be a level to watch for. 212 to 210 is where I think Tesla will bottom, and we're going to see a temporary bounce around there. There's also a big gap to fill above, but it's going to take Tesla a while to fill that gap. But there is going to likely be more downside nonetheless. Apple looks bearish on the daily. We're going to be watching this thing come down to 174.8. If it loses that, watch 174, then 172.5. But the QQQ look for more potential downside. If we lose 359, as we're about to get a bearish cross right here on the PPO, I could see this thing technically dropping towards 357. So it is very possible. And I think it's very probable for more downside, which seems quite imminent in my opinion. Last but not least, when it comes to Nvda stock, if we break 421, we could see this 418 area being tested. If we lose 418, I could see 416 followed by 416, 415, then 410 is going to come next in 409. I think Nvidia is going to test 409 very soon. I am seeing some downside. I think it could sink just a little bit more before we end up making a bounce, but watch for 409 to eventually be tested. We're very close to that. Anyways, guys, that's it for the other tickers. Now let's talk about NIO. What do I think NIO is going to do? I think tomorrow NIO is going to pop a little bit. We're going to retest our resistance, which happens to be right here at the 5 EMA. It's 7.74. Could go a little bit above that towards this resistance from today or the pre-market earlier, around 7.9. I could see like 7.7 to 7.9. Then a rejection, a big rejection, just like how it happened today. And I think NIO is going to sink all the way down to 7.59. It's going to likely fail there and come down to 7.3. And we either hold 7.3 and close around it, or we kind of like break below that and close closer to $7. I think there's more downside nonetheless. And I think that the market's going to drag NIO down. So I do see this much larger head and shoulders like pattern. I do see the $7 area, which is going to be very key. I think it's very probable NIO is going to enter these levels. So watch 7.3 and $7. And I think that there's a little bit more downside to come before we get a very nice bounce over the next couple of weeks. All right, so that's pretty much it for the video. Excuse me. I thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks again, and peace out.